To draw a face is one thing, to draw a realistic face is another thing. So in this video, I'll be showing you how to draw a realistic face portrait. So sit back and enjoy the video, or rather, take your drawing materials and draw with me. If you are watching me for the first time, my name is Osas AD and you are welcome to Osas AD Arts. These are the materials I'll be using. As you can see, I have done the outline using grid method, and the size of the paper I'm using today is 12 by 16. I said to myself, why not use graphite pencils for this drawing? But if you have noticed in all my videos, I do use charcoal pencils. But I'm not gonna use graphite for the overall drawing. I'll be picking from the graphite pencils. I chose 3B and 8B pencils for this drawing. The set of charcoal pencils I'll be using is called Montmartre. I think that is how they pronounce it. And this is why I really don't like graphite pencil. They give this shiny look whenever they attract light. So I'm not gonna use them for the overall drawing. Perhaps I'll be using the charcoal pencils. With that being said, let's get right into the drawing. You can see that I'm removing the excess graphite from the paper so that I can be able to lay down the charcoal pencil. Both the iris and the pupil are both pitch black, so that means we're using the darkest charcoal pencil, which is the soft charcoal pencil, to shade them together. And now you want to use the same charcoal pencils to shade around the eyes. You want to do this with a light pressure. Don't press too much. Now when shading, you don't shade with a light pressure. You don't press hard on your paper. If not, if you want to blend the overall drawing, it will look messy. When you are doing colored pencil drawing, graphite or any medium at all, even with watercolors, you are going to start light at first before going dark. So what I did is just sweeping the pencil on top of the paper. As you begin to progress, you can go darker to suit the reference photo you are looking at. Don't go dark at the beginning, note that. So now I'm doing the other eyes and I'm using exactly the same technique I used before in the left eye. You just need to follow your reference photo, that is just it. If you noticed, I've been using a makeup brush. Yes, a makeup brush to blend. For this part, I think is very important. You can either use your cutting board or tissue paper, but for these small areas, you need to use the tiniest makeup brush you have. You can use any dry brush, if not makeup brush, to blend it, because it really makes it soft and looks pleasing to the eyes. I scraped the darkest charcoal block on the rubber, and that is the powder I'll be using to shade the head. These are the brush I'll be using. Now we want to shade with the charcoal powder. Don't just dip your brush into the powder. You will dip your brush, yes, then you will take out some excess powder out of the brush first. That's why I said when you are starting, you start lightly first before adding pressure. Now as you can see me progressing, I grabbed a bigger brush to fill in bigger spaces, because if you use just that small brush for the bigger spaces, it will cause some lines that you don't want. You can also see I'm using tissue paper. Yes, tissue paper is when you want to also blend big spaces. It's very good, it's very nice with blending big spaces. So I went back with the brush, which is the little brush, to fill in some of the parts that I think needs to be darker. Like I said before, once you are progressing, you would then now use or rather you go in with an heavy pressure. I don't know if that makes sense. And it was at this stage I started giving up. I went in with the mark on the forehead that you are seeing now with the pencil. I regretted doing that because it kind of looks sharp and it was not looking like the reference photo. But later on I fixed it with the tissue. I know everybody makes mistakes, even I do make mistakes. That's how we learn. We all learn from our mistakes. Now you want to grab your graphite pencil, the terrible graphite pencil for the nose. We are sketching the nose with graphite pencil. I normally use my charcoal pencil, but I'll be using graphite pencil for this method. I later regretted it because when I was applying the charcoal pencil on top of the graphite, it didn't layer well. But I think maybe it's because of the paper, or maybe because graphite and charcoal pencils don't agree with each other. But later on it went out well. If you noticed, I used tissue paper to blend it. That's why it looks soft and smooth like this. And later on I shaded the darker areas with the charcoal pencil, the soft charcoal pencil to be precise. You want to do this again according to the reference photo. I hope I'm not seeing the reference photo too much. The thing I like about charcoal pencils, it really gives you that depth when layering. Like, it really gives you that realistic look to your drawing, and that's what I like about it. And yes, graphite pencils also give you that realistic look, but I'm talking about that depth, that darkest part. That's what I like about it. Next, we'll go to the lips. You use your darkest charcoal pencil to lay out the parts that are dark. There is this pin they use in creating textures, but I don't have that, so I use my craft knife, and this worked really well. It worked very well. So I shaded again with my charcoal pencil, and I used the brush, the little brush, to shade it, or rather to blend it. Now after blending it, you want to create some textures on the lips using your charcoal pencil. You want to follow your reference photo so you can get some parts right. It's not everything, or rather every strands that you. Then after doing that, you blend with your slow-mo. And now for the next step, you are using our charcoal powder and I'm using brush to blend it out, because I also use the pencil to shade out the parts that I need to blend before I use my tissue paper to blend it. And there are some parts that were not dark enough, so I went in again using my darkest charcoal pencil. So for that face, you are doing the same thing, shading the face with the pencil, then you blend with your tissue or your brush. Now for the remaining parts of the face, you want to make sure that you are following the reference photo, just do what you are saying and follow the steps that have been given. You can see I also looked at the reference photo, see that some parts were not dark enough, and I also shaded them again. So basically what I'm doing here now is going back and forth, adding darker shadows to the darker areas that I think are not dark enough. Then I'll just blend, just going back and forth, making sure that things are right. now I'll be moving on to the head to create some textures. I'll be using my wooden pencil eraser or pencil wooden eraser to create some highlight texture on the forehead. You can follow the reference photo and just make some random lines that you think are good for textures, and I'm making them tiny because if they are big it will be very messy and it won't look realistic. I said something earlier about making some random lines that will be good for textures, that you think will be good for textures. No, please just try as much as possible to follow the reference photo. I also use the charcoal pencil to create some depth around the highlights. Then you also create the same highlights as the right side of the head, and also you still go in with the dark charcoal pencil to create the depths. You also want to repeat the same process to the face by looking at your face photo, applying the textures. I also added correction pen, which you can call white gel, to the corners of the eyes and the lips to make the highlights pop out more. And yes, we have come to an end of this drawing tutorial. If you watched till the end, thank you very much, and I do hope you learned something from this tutorial. I will upload the full, or rather the next episode, next week Thursday. If you haven't subscribed, please do. It really helps me as an artist. And also turn on the notification bell so you can be notified whenever I upload a new content. Do not forget to like and share. Goodbye and see you in the next one.